0. Welcome to the Ward 1 Community Meeting for March 14th, 2022. My name is Bernie Schultz, and I'm the Ward 1 Counselor for Fitchburg. The first thing I wanted to start with, someone has been in touch with me on the Wanusknock Road school site, and if anyone's interested in giving input on the school there, because it's been declared surplus by the school department recently. So it's going to probably be developed by the city. It's now in the hands of the city of Fitchburg. So if anybody's interested, my contact information is, my email is bschultz@fitchburgma.gov. And my phone number is also 978-342-4998. So I thought I'd just start with that because I would like to get back to the gentleman that contacted me about it. If anyone's interested, you can see me after the meeting. Okay, tonight we have Gary Withington, Superintendent of Streets for the City of Fitchburg, and also Mark Barbadero sitting next to me, who's the Building Commissioner. So we're going to have them make a presentation, and then they're going to answer questions following their presentations. Okay, we'll start with Mark tonight.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Mark Barbadero. I'm the City of Fitchburg Building Commissioner. And I've been doing code enforcement for about 14 years. I started in the town of Acton, worked there about 6 or 7 years. And then I went to Oak Bluffs Martha's Vineyard, and I worked there and for the town of Aquina on the island for 3 or 4 years. And I've been back here about 5 or 6 years. And the job of the building department is to enforce the state building code and the zoning bylaw of the city of Fitchburg. And right now we're experiencing a bit of a building boom, which is terrific for the city. Since 2016, building permits are up 60%. And what's more interesting is the valuation of the work has gone up by 253%. So not only are we doing a lot more permitting, but the amount of work per permit has increased substantially, which is great news for the city. It's going to help out with the revitalization of the city. So I have 3 local inspectors who also enforce the building code, and a wiring inspector and a plumbing inspector in my department, as well as 2 clerks. And what we're trying to do is raise the bar, get the buildings that are being worked on to be as safe as they can be. I think as probably everybody knows, we have a lot of fires in the city, and we lose a lot of people to fires, and a lot of people are made homeless, and a lot of that is due to the built environment in town and its current condition. So we're trying to raise the bar, get as many apartment buildings to be sprinkled as the code will allow, and just generally try and make the city a better place to live in through the code enforcement. So that's about it, unless somebody has some questions.
I do. Your electrical for your residential, you have one person that does that?
Yes.
For the whole city?
Yes.
Fitchburg? And how long has that person been employed, if you don't mind me asking?
Employed by the city?
Yes.
So this is roughly 6 or 7 years.
And do you know that person's work ethics well?
I do. He's badly overworked right now, and we this year we implemented a part-time electrical position, which we're having a little difficulty filling. That's partly due to the building boom that's going on. It's hard to compete with the private sector for a part-time wiring inspector. But you know, in the years that I've worked with Kyle, who is our wiring inspector, I think he's a very, very hard-working gentleman.
Have you reached out to any of the vets for part-time work? They're always looking for part-time work.
Yeah, I have not done that, but that is that's a great idea.
Yes, I think you might be able to find some guys that are interested in working.
That's a good idea, we'll do it.
Is there currently a law, or are you going to propose one, in apartment buildings, like in, like in New York City, any door that opens up to a common area like a hallway has to have those door closures that when you open it, it'll just automatically shut on its own?
So well, actually, usually when you look in an apartment building and you see these sort of mid-hallway doors, those doors are actually there to block smoke and fire, and they're supposed to have closers on them. Most of the time they do, or you can see the impression of where the door closer used to be. Over time and use, they begin to fall apart and fail, and in order to keep them actually able to close, a lot of maintenance people start increasing the pressure, and then the doors slam shut. And then the problem is that the people who live in the apartment building are listening to slamming doors all the time, and then they eventually prop the doors open, and then that defeats the purpose of the smoke and fire protection that those doors are supposed to provide. So there is an ordinance for it, and the building department periodically inspects apartment buildings every 5 years, whether they're having any construction done or not. We certify them every 5 years.
Now, is that just for in the middle of hallways or from each apartment door?
So it depends on the building. If it's a sprinkled building with fire sprinklers in it, then they typically don't have door closers on them. If they were designed originally without door closers, then they might not need them. So if you can check the top of the door for screw holes and the door jamb for screw holes, and if it is apparent that there was supposed to be a closer on there, might be something that needs to be reinstalled, but it's not always required.
What are you planning to do with the Laurel Street School building, which now no one is supposed to go in there unless they've got approval from you? That's what the sign says on the front door.
Yeah.
And it's like maybe the roof has collapsed or something, but you can see the chimney's all damaged too. So is the city going to tear it down or fix it up and then either sell it or use it for something else for the city?
So the Laurel Street School roof has been leaking for a very long time, and about 3 years ago, the second floor ceiling finish collapsed, and that is kind of an unsafe condition unto itself. So the city is looking into options, trying to see if someone will buy it or if they can put the building to use, or should they raise the money to knock it down. So that would be, that's a community development question. That's not something that I have any control over. If the building was, unsafe in terms of collapsing into the street, that'd be a different story. We could probably order it to be demolished. But right now, I think they're trying to figure out what the best option is for the building.
Who's that going to decide that?
Well, there is a group of people, but it's generally the people in community development that decide to demolish buildings for sort of urban renewal. I demolish buildings when they're really unsafe, when I think someone's going to get hurt from the building falling down. But just knocking down an empty building, that's sort of a planning function for the town. Like, they have a certain amount of money, and how many buildings can they knock down in 1 year, and what should those buildings be? That's sort of decided by a group of people, and I'm a vote on that committee, but it's really sort of organized and run through community development. They have the funding, and ultimately they will decide.
The Director of Community Development, by the way, is coming next month to the Ward 1 Community Meeting on April 11th, so in case you want to return next month.
You have a list of all the buildings in Fitchburg that are now empty and the city has taken them over? Even residential ones, you know, where they didn't pay their taxes and their...
So we have two departments that are keeping lists of vacant buildings. We have a vacant registry, and that's the Board of Health. And so when a building is foreclosed on, that company or our lender has to register with the Board of Health. And they keep track of generally vacant buildings. And then there is a short list of buildings that you know, the city has their eye on to knock down. And that list is kept by community development.
all I have right now.
I have another question. A lot of these apartment units, people have taken houses and they divide them into 3 apartments. Is there a plan in place that you can go in before those places are rented out as apartment units and make sure that the electrical is all close to this, they each have their own panel? Because I do this already, where I was paying their power bill, and I still have a $700 power bill.
Cross metering.
Yes.
Yeah. So the, and fires, yeah. Yep. So, yeah, that's, it can be a scary situation. A landlord is modifying the wiring, and the existing wiring in a lot of these buildings that are 100 years old or more is called BX wiring. And kind of interesting fact about wiring is a lot of people hear about knob and tube and think that it's not allowed to be used anymore. It actually is allowed to be installed in new construction. It's just impractical, so no one does it. But BX wiring is not allowed. It's even more dangerous than the old knob and tube. And it's a serious concern and the cause of fires in the city. So let's see. When the building department goes in every 5 years to look at these apartment buildings, we are doing so because the building code requires it. But the building code does not require the wiring inspector to go into the buildings. So what we do is we keep our eyes peeled and see if we can see any problems with the wiring. And if there's apparent problems, then we call the wiring inspector and have him come in and look at the buildings. But there is no, I think what also would be nice would be just to check these apartments periodically just to make sure they're meeting the sanitary code, which is another issue. And we've talked about that in the past. The problem, I think, with implementing a program like that is that there are so many apartment buildings in the city that if every time one became vacant, we had somebody on hand to go into that building, that means we would be carrying a lot of staff and a lot of salary, and that's something that, you know, we may not be able to make up with fees. So then we start taking money out of the general fund, and then they can't fill the potholes and other things that, you know, we need to do around the city. So.
Well, you can just break it into zones,
So.
and during this period of time, this is the zone you're gonna hit, and you're gonna do these apartments,
Right.
and switch them out every, this is 6 months, for 6 months, you have this zone right here, and you do these. You just have the zones, and then you just repeat.
Well, that is a great idea.
That's an idea,
But right now, since the health department isn't my department, right now all I do is the building code end of it, and we, you know, should be hitting every building every 5 years. What's that?
The health department.
The health department would be the ones who handle the sanitary code. So I would check in with them and see if there's a way to implement a program like that. So.
I don't think
Mark, maybe you could explain to everyone, you talked about buildings that are not sprinkled, don't have sprinkler systems. Maybe you could explain how some buildings are grandfathered and others, how they do eventually get the sprinkler systems?
Absolutely. So back, I'd say mid-'80s, early '90s, I'm not sure the exact date, the building code changed pretty radically with respect to apartment buildings and started requiring apartment buildings to be built with a fire sprinkler system installed. And prior to that, they weren't. So they are allowed to continue being the way they were without change unless a fire happens or some other damage happens to the building that requires it either under the building code or under a fire law, Mass General Law, Chapter 148, Section 26I. And that law says if you have a building with 4 or more units in it, if it is damaged to the point where the cost of a sprinkler system would equal new construction, then the fire chief can order it. And then there's the building code, and the building code has a very complicated sort of method of deciding what buildings need to have a fire sprinkler system in it, and it is so complicated and case specific that I can't actually give you a simple metric of when it needs to happen. But another trigger is, substantial alterations, changes in use, increase in the number of units in it. Some of those buildings that have common corridors or stairwells as part of that trigger could trigger the whole building, the need for the whole building to have a fire sprinkler system installed. I wish it was even more strict because since I started working in Fitchburg, 1 to 2 people every year are dying in their apartments, and that's pretty upsetting. Somebody just died recently, a young lady.
Yeah, just off of Falula Street.
Yes, Hartford Street, 27 Hartford, which is right off Falula.
And three decker.
Yeah.
And then you had the other one that people were injured over on Carriageway Drive.
Yep. Both buildings with no sprinkler system in it. The Carriage Drive one, there was at least, I think, 18 units that had to move out as a result of that fire, at least temporarily. I think we moved all of them back, but 3 right now, which are too far gone to be inhabited. But yeah, pretty sad situation. Both of them had people hospitalized. One had a young lady passed away. Another guy's fighting for his life. They had to jump out of the 3rd floor windows to survive. Just awful situation.
Should these apartments be equipped with the safety ladders automatically? They should have them there, or?
Well, the building code doesn't require it. The building code requires 2 exits out of every floor. And a condition that we see around the city a lot in triple deckers is they used to have an exterior stairway. But now it becomes a maintenance item. Snow builds up, they have to be shoveled. Rain gets at them, they start to rot. So the landlords around the city have been periodically enclosing them, sometimes without building permits. And this, I believe that 27 Hartford was a condition like that, where the stairwell got enclosed and the fire at the base of the stairwell had nowhere to go and blocked exit by smoke and fire because it was enclosed and all the heat and all the smoke stayed in the building. Luckily we have a really aggressive fire prevention program in the city, and the fire department has been making people put in smoke detectors every time a property sells or transfers, and they're doing a good job of trying to keep people safe in their apartments with fire and smoke detectors.
Do you find that a lot of the violations belong to the same owners? Because there's this owner will have 5, 6, 7, 8, 15 properties that he's leasing and renting, and
Well, I'm not sure that it is always the same owners, but what I would say is that absentee owners are almost always the worst. So if there's somebody who is not in the city, who is buying apartments and they live far away, they're not paying attention to the condition of their buildings. And I think absentee landlords are probably the biggest problem that I see.
Militant tenants are a problem. I've had some friends that were landlords, and they get notification from the Board of Health, it's been filed against them. Tenant doesn't want to pay rent till it's taken care of. They get in and get it checked off, all up to code, and the next day there's one pulled against them because they destroyed stuff.
Can you say that one more time?
The tenant destroys things and then complains that there's a health violation.
That is true.
And there are those that do that,
That is true.
perpetuate some problems.
It's true. And tenants do try and find, some tenants try and find whatever they can to implicate the landlords. And a lot of times they'll say the smoke detectors are missing and they took them down themselves because maybe they want to get the landlord in trouble, but a lot of times it's nuisance alarms are driving the tenants crazy too. Maybe they smoke cigarettes or they burn a lot of food. And they're not supposed to smoke in the apartment, yep. But you know, we've just got to make sure that those smoke detectors are installed. And, you know, we don't do the poor health department, they are the ones who are always being called for those things. The sanitary code is the first line of defense. But their job is not to decide who's in the wrong. They're just there to say, oh, the window's broken, the door's broken, the smoke detectors are missing, and so on. So I know it can be a frustration.
It's filled up with trash. And people can't, because people don't take it from the upper levels and bring it down to put it in trash.
True. Yep. Yeah, I agree. There's a partnership in public safety that is that sometimes fails, and sometimes it's the tenant's fault, and sometimes it's the landlord's fault. But at the end of the day, it's the landlord's name on the mortgage, so they're going to be the one who's in trouble. So, sadly.
How much discretion does the fire chief have in enforcing some of these codes for older buildings, Mark? Do they have any discretion at all?
I think they do, and I think they aggressively pursue public safety in Fitchburg. It's just a case of the built environment being old, and there's been a surplus of rental properties in Fitchburg, which drives the price of rent down, which hinders the ability of a landlord to reinvest in his property. And there's you know, it's a systemic problem. And I think that the fire chief and his fire prevention officers are working hard to try and keep the buildings safe. And I know we are.
My homeowners, they get, I mean, I have a two-family, but the fire inspector has never been out, but the homeowners policy, whoever does the policy, they come out and say if something is not correct, you know. So I don't know if that's for everybody or just me.
So the building code does not require periodic inspections of 1 and 2 families. As soon as you get to 3 families, then they need to get inspected every 5 years. So that's probably why we haven't been out. But yeah, insurance companies do come out and check on properties to make sure that they're up to code.
Do you go, currently is construction of homes on Harvard Street, across from the diner and the other 2 businesses. Do you go out periodically to inspect to see if the building code's being followed as they build it, or do you just wait to the very end?
Oh, no, we go out periodically. The building code says that you're not allowed to cover work unless it's been inspected. So the inspectors are out all the time. And actually, it's a balancing act when I have 3 inspectors, and the amount of construction that has happened over the last 5 years allowed the city to give me my 3rd inspector. And we don't have a lot of time to do the zoning code enforcement that we would like, because we're a little bit overtaxed with following up with the new construction. But when that begins to slow down a little, it's not gonna be this hot forever, then we'll be able to start focusing a little more on the, you know, the maintenance items, the nuisance complaints that people have. Right now, we're hitting them as best we can, but it just takes more time.
I forget how many units there are where the Longchamp Cadillac used to be.
What's that?
I forget how many units are going
I
in.
think it's 14 now.
14?
Yeah.
14 units for what?
That building on Harvard Street.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Where the Longchamp Cadillac used to be.
The diner.
Yeah.
That's what he was referring to.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's not like a 1 unit or a 3 unit. It's multiple to go in there, and you got to inspect every one of them.
Right. But, you know, it's really nice that when new buildings are built, because the systems are all brand new and everything is brought to current code, and they're just a safer environment for people. So I like that.
Any other questions for Mark?
I have one that's not related to our ward, but that I'm looking at buying a new house to me in Fitchburg. There's another one built 1900. What do I need to supply for information and find out the information on putting up a shed?
So I'm glad you mentioned that. So a shed's pretty simple, right? We have a size requirement that allows you to put your shed in the backyard, and you can be 3 feet from the side or rear property line. If your shed is under a certain size, and off the top of my head, I think that's 120 square feet or smaller, then you can be 3 feet from the side or rear property line. But if you want to build a larger shed, then you need to meet the setbacks for any building. And, you know, depending on the zone, it could be 15 feet from the sidelines and, 35 feet from the rear lines. But what you can do is you can always stop by, you can always call, and if you're looking for an answer that you can really kind of rely on, something in writing, then we do this thing called a form of intent. And anybody who they want to get a written, sort of reliable answer that you can point to later. You can apply for a form of intent and give me as much information about what you're intending to do. In your case, it would be the size of the shed. Maybe you can provide me a plot plan, maybe draw where the shed, you intend to put the shed. Then I can talk to some other departments. Maybe there's a septic system on that property. Maybe not. Most of the city's got a...
City water, but it is floodplain.
Okay, so maybe there's other elements I can have other departments look at as well as me, and we can give you a more definitive answer.
I'm trying to be proactive.
Yeah.
We just, we went through all of that with Rollstone Congregational Church on getting a shed put up and where it is and how the construction it was. I believe that they were impressed with the construction because the ones that we had doing it were above code for doing everything, and because we want it to last.
Good.
What would $50,000 more do for you in your budget?
What was that?
What would $50,000 more do for you in your department?
Well, that would almost fund a guy for a year. So, I got some guys that are in the $60,000, $70,000 range, so $50,000 would, fund a guy for a year to do inspecting.
How long do you think this so-called boom is going to last, that you're behind in your inspections?
How long do I think it will last? Well, I hope it lasts a good while, but I don't have, it's not showing signs of slowing now, but I mean, instability in the economy, we're showing signs of that, right? At some point, I have a feeling it's going to slow down. We went through such a low demand period of housing statewide. And what happened after COVID was people decided that they needed to have a big home to live in that would be comfortable, and they could work from home and not be in their way of their families and other things, and it drove the demand for housing. People in Boston suddenly wanted to come out and to where I live, and now the people where I live can't afford homes, and so they're coming to Fitchburg, and that is driving a lot of this. I'm not sure how long it's going to last.
I know with one of the proposed ones is the, I think it was 128 units on the corner of Day and Main Street, which is right next to Rollstone Church. And that was not going to be for low-income people. That was going to be full market value for that. The one on North Street, Snow, and Cherry, it was going to be more for low-income people, and that going in. And then you've got the old Harbor building that they're working on now. That's trying to put more things available for people in the city.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mark. You were, yeah.
I'll be seeing you.
All right, come on down.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We've got Gary Withington now. He's going to talk, and then he'll answer any questions. Thank you,
Hi, good
Gary.
evening. I'm Gary Withington from the Pittsburgh DPW. I've been with them since 1995. I've been superintendent since 2010. We do a vast variety of different things in the city as far as maintenance. What I'd like to speak on tonight is we're going to start street sweeping day and night next Monday. So if you'd like to get out and sweep your sidewalks into the street, just what I ask is please don't put the dirt in piles. It makes it tougher for the sweepers to pick it up. And we are starting in Ward 6. That should take us about a week and a half to get done. Then we're moving up to Ward 1. So roughly about 2.5 weeks, we should be starting Ward 1, but that all depends on the weather. The other thing I'd like to talk about is potholes. Everybody has them. The only place we can actually get hot mix right now is out in Drake It. We get on there, we get 7 ton a day out of Drake It, and that crew, it'll last a day, but we also have 1 or 2 other crews using coal patch. It doesn't stay as long. The hot mix we're trying to use on the main roads, the coal patch we try and do on the side streets. And I think the local plant is opening usually the 2nd week of April, and then we'll be getting more mix. So please be patient with us. We're trying as far as the potholes.
And you get inundated with the C-Click fix
Yes, we do.
on everything else, including the potholes.
Including, when I go out on a Monday morning, it's nothing for me to have 50 different items in C-Click Fix.
What would $50,000 do for your department for, not manpower, but supplies like, that coal patch and any other equipment or supplies you need?
Not
would-
much.
Do some, when that truck goes down for that 7 ton of coal patch every day, you're probably talking close to $800 for that one load.
And equipment, $50,000 doesn't
Doesn't do
touch
anything.
anything.
No. We've had a sweepers breakdown and the part cost us $25,000.
Just basic maintenance is
Yes,
used up very quick.
yes. Now, if you want to give me $1 million, I could probably pave about a mile of road.
Those are hard to fathom numbers.
Yes, so I know, nothing's getting cheaper.
On one hand, $1 million is a lot of money. On the other hand, it's not.
Yeah.
As a person, it is, but
Yes.
as a city and community, it's gone in no time.
And you also have to think, asphalt is actually made, it's an oil base made. Now, you know what the oil prices are doing right now? They're skyrocketing. So I can't wait to see what we're going to be paying soon for asphalt. It's usually about $1 million every year.
Gary, maybe you could talk about some of the projects that are going to be happening in the spring, give everybody, especially in Ward 1.
The biggest thing I'd like to put out there is we really haven't done any berm repairs where the plows over the winter have come and ruined the berms in front of your houses. Hopefully this year, I really want to start getting to that and start fixing them. So if you have something like that, please give our dispatcher a call or put it in C-Click Fix. I know
We need the paper trail.
yes. I know the sewer separation is starting up shortly back in Ward 1. I think they're going to be starting on South Street, and then they still have to do Walnut Street. I'm not sure of where else they have to go.
Well, they're still on Nashua Street as well, Gary, right?
Right. But I think they're almost done Nashville now.
Yeah.
They're starting back up the Main Street Boulder Drive project this week. Hopefully finishing that up. The paving list really hasn't come out yet for this year, so I have no idea. That all depends on prices.
The water department got some of the ARPA money. Is that going to be for their Boulder Drive?
Yeah, I think that's going to be replacing the water mains down on Boulder Drive.
Well, there is no water main on Boulder Drive, so they're supposed to be putting one in. There's 2 water mains on Main Street. I'm a member of Stratton Players, and we have the building on the Faith,
yes.
next to the Faith Club.
Hey,
And we had looked at getting water from Boulder Drive, and we couldn't. And we'd have to go across other properties to get there, but with the one going in on Boulder Drive, it's the perfect time for us to be able to tie into
Oh, absolutely.
into that for both, for a large volume for a sprinkler system and the regular water. Because we had talked with the water department, we could have gotten a water main brought up from Putnam Street up to that building, but it would not support a sprinkler system. So it didn't make any sense to do that at that time, so. We're still going to be working on getting that up and get the infrastructure in place, and then we can work on getting the superstructure done.
And Gary, that involves the side streets as well off of Boulder Drive, right? Those
Yes,
mains are
I
going to be
think so.
replaced as well?
We're going to continue rehabbing the sidewalks on Day Street and Snow Street that we started last year. We'll also have to do some work up at the Park Hill Park as far as refurbishing the skateboard park and some of the little items up there. We'll be doing our catch basins if they're falling throughout the city. With the salt that we use in the winter, it destroys the catch basins. So we started that today, actually, rebuilding catch basins.
In front of New England,
Yes.
job security.
But we'll be doing various sidewalk projects throughout the city.
Any scheduled for Ward 1, like Water Street or anything?
I know, I think that's going to be part of, we'll have to wait and see what the state does when they redo those 2 bridges. I think those in 2024.
2024? Okay. Any other questions for Gary? Gary, great job. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. I don't know who it would be for, but like the buildings around my neighborhood, the patch, to me, it's an eyesore that, you know, there was something in there quite a few years ago, some guy was trying to put a pet store, it's been for sale forever. You know what I'm talking about, like,
Or spruce.
after you pass St. Bernard's Church, where it used to be on the right, across
Is
from
the old furniture, Giordano's furniture?
It was before I was here.
Before you were here.
The
Yeah.
only thing that's ever been since I was here was a guy tried to put a pet store in there for about a month.
Yeah,
Or
it's
something.
it's in the urban renewal plan. The Fitchburg Redevelopment Authority is looking at that building, Eddie, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're definitely,
The church, are they gonna do it? I mean, I've seen some movement around there from time to time, but it's been a while since.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about the church, yeah. It did get sold, but haven't heard anything more about it.
Yeah, then right when you turn in, I guess it's, I guess it will be 3rd Street. There's a house there that I think there's been squatters in there forever. You know, there's the little small house. There's one that they redid behind it, but the first one is, I think people have been living there that,
On Third Street, is that what you?
yep, like 3rd and Water Street, kind of.
I'll have somebody look.
Right across from where the place burned down a long time ago.
Yeah, tomorrow I'll send somebody out to see what's going on with the building.
Because I knew David Allard owned it for a little while, but I think he defaulted. And he said that they had never paid him. There's always been people in there.
That actually brings up a point. If there's a safety issue, please, don't use C-Click
And
Fix.
that's why I'm saying, it looks like it to me, plus it's an eyesore, you know, I mean, when people come into my neighborhood, I don't want them to feel like they can't get out of their car, you know?
Right. Well,
If there's squatters there, then there's usually no gas, electric, or water going in.
so an abandoned building,
Yeah.
like, as you say, often doesn't have electricity, so it has no alarm system. It might not have heat. A triple-decker burned down recently where squatters actually were building a fire inside the oven to stay warm. But abandoned buildings are a real risk for fire, so like I was saying, if you guys, and anybody who watches this tape, if it's a safety issue, please, email me or call my department. Safety first, obviously, so I don't want people getting hurt. I'd like to know about problems with buildings, safety issues like right away.
And then as the rail trail is getting, I mean, there's been people on it, and I run with my dog back there, but there's people living back there too. I mean, I know it's always been a problem, and they get run out, but then they're back, it takes about a while. And, down by the river too, I don't know, is that private property? Like if you turn left instead of going on the rail trail?
I don't know who, whether it's privately owned or owned by the city, but I know about the squatters.
Yeah, there's so much trash been dumped back there, and someone dumped a boat back there within the past few years.
Yeah. Is it visible from the rail trail?
The tent, well, this time of year, but probably when the leaves come out, not so much.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I think that, we want it to look better, because people have already been dumping trash on the rail trail too. I don't know if are they gonna have cameras or anything?
I don't know about the cameras. I'm guessing probably not, but I think, if you're seeing trash anywhere in the city getting built up, I would try and reach out to the Board of Health about it. And you can use C-Click Fix for that. The Board of Health is pretty, in touch with C-Click Fix. So, give the location as best you can. When it's something like off the rail trail, you need to find some landmarks to let them know where it's at.
Oh, yeah, well, to me, it seems like there's only a couple of entrances. If someone was gonna dump trash from a truck, they would have had to go in at, by the old Halloween store or the other end, Duck Mill Road.
Well, they watch for what's coming around. I know the Hotel Raymond has a dumpster that's behind their church's parking lot, and the pastor will be upstairs, and he can see they're emptying that dumpster. And as soon as they pull away, trucks start pulling in
Oh, really?
to fill up their dumpster. Yep. But I know I've been after him for a number of years to try to get some more barrels on Main Street. Getting at least one each block would be nice, because back when it was Fitchburg Pride, and I was working with Joel Caddy trying to get some more, and he said, it's money.
Yeah.
So, because I walk everywhere, so I walk up and down Main Street, and it's one thing. Whereas a whole block and there's no trash, something gets dropped. Whereas the rubbish barrel's right there, and it's right beside it. They're too lazy to just throw it in. It's one thing when the wind comes and blows it out, but other than that,
That's frustrating.
I've been working with Sam Squalier and the Keep Fitchburg Beautiful, and I pick up an unbelievable amount of the nips on Main Street. And I've got to have 2 great big huge bags for Earth Day to turn in, just the nips.
Yeah, they're all over the city. City cleanup, we've picked them up for years now, all over the city. Yeah.
You talked about putting a deposit on those. Did that ever get proposed or anything? No. Would that have to be through the whole state?
Yeah, it would have to be through the state. That's the problem.
What were you talking about, a deposit?
Yeah.
On those bid
Nips.
bottles, yeah.
That's a great idea.
There are some communities that have outlawed them in their community to be sold. They can't sell them in the nip bottles.
They do make a mess.
But they're supposed to be very good if you're going to be flying on an airplane. If they're sealed, you can carry them on. Because they fall under the guidelines of TSA.
Good to know.
Okay, any other questions before we end the meeting? I want to make an announcement. I want to thank everybody for coming out on this cold Monday night. And
I was able to make it this time. I couldn't make it the last couple of times. By the time I finally get out and get up here, nobody here.
we're going to have the next meeting is going to be Monday, April 11th, Ward 1 community meeting, and we're going to have Community Development Director Tom Skorowski come. He's planning and community development. And also, we're going to have Chris Paquette from he's an assessor from the assessor's office, so he'll be here as well. So that'll be at 6:30 here in the Legislative Building on Monday, April 11th. And I also want to thank Mark and Gary for their presentations and answering all the questions. Appreciate it. So have a good night, everyone.